Welcome everyone. Good afternoon, good morning for the one of you on the United States timelines. We're very happy actually to have you here on the virtual green, and for some of you to have you on a real green by tomorrow. I'm here having the pleasure to introduce a very exciting session. We have high-level presenters, speakers coming from all over Germany for once, and even France. With one step on the other side of the ocean as well. So thank you for being there. Let me introduce you quickly to this session. We started actually last year with KPMG to organize a golf tournament. We actually were a little surprised by the enthusiasm there was actually for such an event, and we added to it an agenda already last year, which we actually have extended this year to the day before. So that's why we are actually sitting together, sometimes only separated by a camera or a screen, and hopefully maybe even in person, as we have the pleasure to have a few guests here in this room, which is also our studio. So a few words on the company for the one of you that are new to DALIM. I mean, we are a company located in Germany, as close to France as you possibly can, because we're just a bridge away from France. We're basically the German suburb of Strasbourg, and therefore quite central on the European base. We are quite international. We do business in all 5 continents, with our largest national market being the United States of America, followed by a number of European countries, and the remainder of which being everything that is southern of the hemisphere, where we have business in Australia and Japan, and also in Latin America, especially in Brazil. So we started as a company in 1985. That's quite a long time ago. In those days, people were talking about computer graphic. There was no Apple Macintosh, for the one of you that actually can even imagine a world without the Mac. But basically, there was nothing like that near any studio or agency, and we were actually buying the computers in the Silicon Valley and programming them on this side of the ocean before shipping and delivering them to customers that would be computer graphic specialists. They were doing a presentation on Ektachrome 35mm slides, for some of whom will remember those distant times. And one day somebody actually bought our system in a printing plant, and all of a sudden we were confronted to RGB to CMYK. From there onwards, we actually learned how to do publishing, how to do packaging, and we never stopped since. These actually take us to the early 90s, where we basically came up with, at the same time as internet was coming along, from a non-internet era, from basically desktop software to server-based software. That took us actually into the year 2000. We basically went from helping people designing and building graphic art, so basically artworks, to basically helping them automatically transform, repurpose them, and basically eventually store them. That took us into online proofing, asset management, and in our DNA is probably the invention of asset management in 1994. There is also the soft proofing in 2004, followed by a number of innovation, to the point that we actually have been awarded innovation awards from the German government actually nearly 10 times in a row. I think definitely 9 times in a row, and are now actually on a journey where we are actually helping international companies to organize their assets and basically make those complex workflow between creative agencies, production, printing plants, distribution, online, offline, video work seamlessly. So we are present in multiple spaces. The speech you're going to have today will revolve around what is probably keeping you busy, is how do you stay in business even if there was, who knows, another lockdown? How can you actually continue produce uninterruptedly? And for that we have called for help quite a few experts. Some of them you know already. Uwe, which is coming from the EPDA as a vice president. Sylvia later on, that is going to speak to us as a president of that exciting organization. This will be followed by a presentation from the usual suspects, Amazon Web Services, which actually will help you keeping your data safe and repurposable everywhere. And there is a connection to the green, but I'm not going to tell you right away what it is, and I will leave it to our colleagues later. So tomorrow we'll meet you on the green for one of you that know how to handle a golf ball. And for the one that do not know, you could also join us for the practice, spend a little time on the green, which is all driving us into an interesting lunch. Before we get to there, I would like to show you a green logo again. We have a website that I encourage everyone to take a look at. It's csr.dalim.com. Corporate sustainable responsibility has been at the core of our thought process, not only actually when it's about our own electrical consumption, but also because of what happens around us. We do believe at DALIM that there is a space in the media landscape for the media that are consuming once and never again, i.e. Paper, substrate based, or the media that basically is on electronic media, which is likely to consume for a long time. So we need to be conscious about it, because if we are not, and taken the speed with which the storage are actually taking over the terabytes, the petabytes that are available around the net, we might have a huge environmental problems, and I think this is the IT company that needs to be aware of that. This is, for instance, a projection of the space it takes to keep a few zettabytes online. These are all numbers that all translate at the end of the day in power plants. And the power plants, as you know, a big debate in Europe. It's going to be our ecologists that are going to restart our nuclear power plant. Who would have thought that a few years ago? But this is going to happen. So the same thing goes for the coal production plant, which basically are going to be online for quite some time. But fortunately, when we look at those goals that the United Nations have set, even if they are probably more aimed at people producing consumer goods, I mean, we can still apply it to a company like us. We did, for instance, that, and it was not very complicated, when we adopted our first full electric car. And we had a few extremists in this building that told us, wait a minute, you have an electric car, you're charging it with nuclear power. Is it really reasonable? Can you do better? And then we looked further, and then we bought green energy out of the dam from Switzerland to basically feed our building, which makes us, since 2014, one of the only software company that would be entirely relying on renewable energy for producing software. And that was only the beginning of the trigger of a chain reaction that took us to an internal reflection and focusing on a number of those goals. Some of them where we can actually identify better, like, for instance, in industry innovation, for tomorrow, and that water power, which is probably the most incredible and fascinating source of energy there is, because you are not doing anything else than just using the flow of the water to generate energy. So that took us from redesigning transportation on two wheels in a full electric concept that we have been testing here and there, where even one sample was sold at the other end of Europe a few weeks ago, to basically sourcing biogas inside the building for our heating. This is not going to be cheaper, by the way, than any other gas. I'm not saying, at least it's a biogas. And also encouraging community around us, whether we're talking about a feminine handball team that is in League One, or was in League One, and is continuing to fight its way into League One on the other side of the border in France, to basically team building sessions of that same team in the forest, to tree planting initiatives, really hands-on. We only have not even quite 100 trees at our active, up to date, but I think we are talking now more into the thousands for a very near future. I encourage you to come and see us at the next opportunity, and we'll tell you where we stand on that front. We engage with all the local activities as much as we can, and we even design software to help people at the consumer level to drag a lot less data over the internet. In that particular case, we're speaking about PDF Lite, which I encourage everyone to download, and your friends and the friends of your friends and all your family, because if they have at any point in time a PDF that doesn't fit into an email, that software will actually cut the size sometimes up to 10 times and get it onto every mobile to open, since it's really designed for mobile. That magic behind is the same that we have in our ES and Twist server, and that is being used from the southern tip of Africa all the way to the other side of the world, and we get fantastic feedback. People telling us, hey, does it exist like for companies and an enterprise? That's where we say, yeah, of course, we have that too. But it's a great piece of software to reduce the amount of data that you would actually send to people around the planet. And it's free. That's the best news. I mean, it's completely free. And since we wanted to know how bad are we ourselves with what is remaining in terms of footprint, knowing that we have energy that we actually are buying or updating our fleet with full electric cars, with hybrid cars and everything, where do we stand in terms of footprint? So we did actually use one of those applications, in that case Planetly, with our corporate social responsibility manager during the pandemic. It was in 2020, to basically assess what our footprint would be. And we came to a few conclusions, aiming at first assessing how much it is, then possibly offsetting, and if we can, maybe one day we'll certify it. But I think it's important to first do and then worry after, to do the accounting to say, okay, did we do a lot more or not enough or something like that. So that actually gives this kind of very basic statistic, not a big surprise. I mean, a decent part of the emission are our employees. I mean, that would be normal. We send them also sometimes around the world, so there's travel. And there is a consumption of our own computing power. That equals 700 and something tons of CO2 for what we are concerned, that after all the reduction we did before, so we could assume that if we had done nothing, maybe we would be at 1,500. So that's already a good way. We need to do more. We need to make sure that gets offsetted, and to me the best way to offset is nature. And nature can use a few more trees around the planet without going into the details where. And we invite you to follow us among a few software release, after and between a few software release, to see where is it that we plant lately. Thank you very much. I will hand over to Aristide, who will introduce us to our next speakers.